Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another session of our
Hi.
discussions. It's
Hi,
really nice to see you both. So
nice
Yeah,
to
there's
see you
just
nice to
three
too.
of
see you
us
too.
today,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
but I think we can still have a nice conversation about education, which is
Yeah.
a very broad topic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be important for us to narrow it down.
Yep.
Um, I think when we talk about education in Africa, um, when I was thinking about this, I thought, okay, so what's the role of education? What's the purpose of it in a society? And I think it's two main things. First, to prepare a section of your society to enter the job process, to contribute to your economy. That's one aspect of it. And another aspect is to make them into citizens who understand the morals and values of your society so that they can embody those morals and values and pass it down from generation to generation. So for today's discussion, I think it's going to be important for us to focus just on the first aspect of it, which is like preparing a segment of citizens to enter the job market.
Yeah.
We can talk about everything else at a later date, because
Yeah,
it's like a
sure.
huge topic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when it comes to preparing people for the job market, we can talk about schools as the main way of going about preparing that segment of the population. So I want us to go through three different aspects: um, affordability of
Mm-hmm.
schools,
Okay.
quality and access,
Mm-hmm.
and then lastly, relevance.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about affordability, and we can make the distinction between K through 12, meaning kindergarten through high school, and education, because I think in many countries there's a differentiation there.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we talk about affordability, what is your
Mm.
take on that? How affordable would you say education is in your context in Ghana, and in you can talk about Benin or Ghana, Shamrid, or Senegal, or whichever.
Yeah. Um, so Shamri, do you want to go or should I?
No, please, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. So okay, I mean I can narrow it down to Ghana. Um, uh, I think generally, most of our countries, including Ghana, has this free compulsory universal basic education. That's the public school systems, all the way from nursery now through to kindergarten, all the way to junior high. That's the American system. I think that'll be like grade 12, if I'm not mistaken,
Mm-hmm.
right? And usually it's, you know, access to school is largely free, largely. I mean, tuition free, etc. Um, but even though access has been free for quite a while now, I mean, over 15 years, 20 years, we've still had a lot of access challenges, depending on the economic situation of specific families and where they find themselves in the countries, and also depending on what gender they are. So we found out that a lot of the times, even though there's some degree of access, there are much more ladies who don't go to school, or young girls who find it difficult to access school, just because of cultural and other reasons. They'll rather be they'll not be sent to school by their parents, and they're supposed to be helping their mothers in the market and looking after the home. They're not seen as priority in terms of access to education. The boys are usually seen a priority, and that's why over the years there's been a lot of campaigns: send your girl child to school, which has actually improved access of a lot of girls to school, to primary school, and to junior high school. So largely, I think affordability, there's been a vast improvement. I mean, if I look at Ghana and other West African countries, even beyond West Africa, to look at East, South, generally there's been a lot of improvement when it comes to affordability. The challenge is that many people now who have some, relatively good income, do not really want to send their children to public schools in many of our
Bingo.
countries. Yeah. And the reason why they don't want to send their children to public schools is not the affordability issue, but it's the quality issue. And so yes, they are affordable, but a lot of people don't believe that they have the quality enough to make their children competitive for the world, for them to thrive in this global in the global space. And so of course they've fallen on private schools and different types of private schools with different types of methodology and curriculum. Like some are British, some are American schools, some are French, some are Swiss. It just depends. Some say they are Montessori. It's a very interesting mix. So a lot of times, some parents, when they get out of the poverty bracket, they feel like, no, public schools are not good, good for my children, and so they take them out of public schools. But in Ghana specifically, interesting, public high schools, are more, popular than the private high schools. I just think because of the historical issues related to that, where these schools were very good, really run very good, based on strong British, curriculum back in the days, and have this historical value. And just the sheer numbers, I mean, there are not enough private high schools for people to go to. And so sometimes some of the public schools that are seen to be quite good and got good discipline, have a good history. And then, of course, they are boarding, because we have a boarding school culture in high school. People prefer to send their children to boarding school as a way of training them to become much better citizens. Yeah. So that's my initial take.
Okay, and on my end, in terms of affordability, I really like the fact that you started by defining the goals of education, and we are now focusing on making people ready or citizens ready for the job system. So when it comes to affordability, you look at the cost, and as Charles mentioned, there's a lot of attempts or successful attempts to reduce the cost of education, like the cost, the amounts of the tuition fees, and especially from the kindergarten to primary. It's a section of education which is mostly free or at a very low cost. But in terms of cost, when you look at the economic cost of having a member of the family gone to school and spending like a certain number of years, days, focusing solely on having a better education, not all family can afford this cost, because often in Benin, children are already a revenue-making entity. So very early in their days, they start selling with mom, they start doing something with dad, and they actually contribute to make money or bring money to the table. So when you think of the goal of making them ready for the job system, and you compare it also with the amount they are able to bring to the table, a lot of families think that it doesn't make sense to push them to school. It's better to make them work now, because even if they go to school, it's not even sure that they will have a job which will make them make enough money to justify this sacrifice. So yes, when you look at that, I still think that a lot of people can't afford to go to school, because, well, for like how many years, 12 or 10 years, having your kids not making money for the family, it's a huge cost for some family. And so they don't go for that option. And we have a lot of undereducated kids in Africa. But unfortunately, most projects and programs aiming at enhancing the profile of education are trying to address this aspect. But I still believe we can do more.
Yeah, I think just to speak to the Senegalese context, it's interesting that we have Ghanaian and Beninese context, because it speaks to also our colonial histories, right? So yes. Charles, you mentioned boarding schools. This is not really something that we do in Senegal or have, and I think it's similar in Benin, right, Chamre? Yeah, exactly. Simply because it's more of a French system, where boarding schools are not really, at least not at the high school level, it's not really a thing. So most students go to school and back home on a daily basis. And it's interesting, we're talking about affordability and access, but they're two different things. There's a lot of private schools in Senegal, but most of those are in Dakar, in the capital. So that means that students that are in the other regions of the country do not necessarily have access, even if they are able to, if their families are able to afford having them attend these schools. And some of these schools are not cheap. they're run by foreigners, actually, like you mentioned, Charles. And they're on top of not being financially accessible always, they're physically not accessible because they're concentrated in one area of the country. So there's also that aspect of it. But once you get to university, things are different actually in Senegal, meaning that most of our universities, the big ones that are well known, are public universities. There are not many. There are two main ones actually when we talk about the Senegalese context. And we have millions of students who graduate every year. There also access becomes a problem, right? These universities cannot welcome all of these students.
That's
so
right.
Then there's also then an opening of many private universities to be able to welcome some of these students that are graduating but are not able to attend the public universities, even if those would be their first choices. So what is the situation like in Ghana and in Benin at the university level?
Yeah,
I think, go ahead, Cham.
All right, I think it's very similar to the Senegalese case because there's a huge number of students who graduate from high school, and the public university can't accommodate all of them. So there's this rise of private universities. And as you rightly mentioned, sadly, most of them are based in the capital, Cotonou, and it makes it difficult for students from other remote parts of the country to access them. And the private universities are very pricey, whereas the public universities are much cheaper, and it affects the quality of education, but definitely we'll be talking about quality later.
No, I mean, it's almost a similar situation in Ghana. Over the years, there've been, I think, at a point in time, 4 established public universities. I think it was University of Cape Coast, University of Development Studies, University of Ghana, Legon, and the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. But of course, there have been projects now to expand public universities. So we have a couple of more new ones that have been added, 3 or 4 other public universities. But of course, there's a raft of private universities. In terms of the past 20 years, we've had a lot of private universities, an explosion really of private universities. And of course, in terms of fees, they are not cheap. And most of them have, have been focused a lot on not on the sciences, but on business administration, on the social sciences and business administration. So there's some really great ones, though, really good private universities. But there are some that they may not be at the standard that you would term as a private university generally. And so in Ghana, yes, we have a lot of options in Ghana. A lot of options. There's a lot of educational institutions in terms of at the university level, and of course, university level education in Ghana is not free. There's an amount. Yeah, you have to pay. Even in the public space, you pay some amount of user fees for. It may not be tuition, but fees that enables the universities to run, contribute to their operations at some levels. But I feel like our university education has really expanded in terms of access. I think there's a lot more people now accessing university education in Ghana than maybe 20 years ago, right?
Yes.
There's a lot.
I think it's similar in Senegal, the situation. But I wonder about how well that whole private university sector is regulated. The rate at which these universities are springing up, every time I'm in Dakar, I feel like the new building is a university, and they tend to be just buildings that look like any other residential building, but you see, private university, I don't know, Institut de Management or whatever, and you realize it's, so it makes you wonder in terms of regulation, it seems to be very lax, at least, given the rate at which they are. But I don't know much to actually speak
I mean, we have accreditation boards in our countries that, give permission. Look, there's been some quack ones that have started operating without the right accreditation. In Ghana, there was a clampdown some years ago on these organizations. But most of them are legit. They go through the accreditation process. They're supposed to affiliate with a specific public university in good standing, and reach a certain criteria before they are given that independence to issue their own certificates, which has happened in Ghana for some of the private universities already. It's called receiving their charter, and they've received that charter. Yeah. So I mean, to an extent, I think the accreditation has been pretty good. But as usual, Africa with regulation has never been one of our strong points. We usually, allow things to get out of hand before we step in. We like firefighting a lot. And of course, with respect to a private universities, the same approach. You can see that is what's happening. Yeah.
It's interesting that you are bringing this aspect of regulation, because we have a different scenario in Benin, whereas most of the private university were not affiliated with the public one. So it came to a point where the state said that all this university which has been popping, like, do they have the requisite knowledge and competency to deliver this degree? And the interesting solution they came up with is to do a national examination for degrees such as bachelor's and master's. And this has created a lot of critique, a lot of reaction, because you usually don't have a national examination to get your bachelor. And people were saying that it discredits the quality of the education of the sector. But because we are under a very non-flexible government, the state was like, no, to make sure that all these bachelors are legit, you have to run or to go through a final exam, and then we will certify you actually having the bachelor or not. And this has also created this perception that if you go to a private school, you may not get a job in Benin unless you have a private entity willing to hire you, or you go outside if your private entity has some affiliation with another university outside. If you want to be safe, you want to have a recognized job, go to a public university. If you want your degree to be easily accepted by external university, go to a public university. Even when I was migrating from Benin to Ghana to do my master's, and I had to go to your accreditation board, which I believe is a great institution to help in regulating this environment, they had to make sure that my degree were actually coming from a well-respected and accredited university. And the fact that I went through a public university, it was an automatic yes. I was imagining someone coming from this Institute Superior de Management who will be obliged to do another year in Ghana before having his bachelor, and it can create a lot of mess. So I think Joel has joined us.
Yes, welcome, Joel. Can you hear us?
No, I think you're on mute, Joel.
I think you're muted.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you now. I was mute.
Yes,
and,
great.
Nice
Welcome,
meeting
Joel.
you guys.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Thank you.
We're just talking about education, and we made the premise to lay the context that we can go in many different directions, but we want to focus on, when we say education, really the systems and the infrastructures in place in our countries that help prepare the section of the population that's getting ready to enter the job market. So that's why we're focusing a lot on schools and universities for this conversation. And we started with affordability, just trying to understand whether it's kindergarten to high school versus universities. How affordable would you say in Guinea, for example, where you're at, access to education is for students?
Great. That's a very good topic, right? And in Africa, we almost have the same context when it comes to education. It's true that some countries has made some move ahead of the other countries, but when you take it in the broad umbrella, we are almost having the same context in Africa. And Guinea is not apart from those countries. Guinea is also part of the context. And education, I think I discussed that one with you during our first topic, that I told you guys that Guinea education is free. It's totally free, right? From primary school to university, it's free. government subsidized and the government support the education. So we don't have this major issue when it comes to free education, right? Now, when we talk about free education, we start questioning the quality of the education. When it's free, is it a quality one? So when talking about the private university in Guinea, we have a lot of private universities, right? Private high school, secondary school, we do have, and private university as well. So the thing is, it's good to have private university. The question of quality will always come, but look, when you come to a point where you have a number of university students like higher, or the number is more than the available places in the public university, that actually give room to businessmen to open private university. Is of course it's a business, but in some extent that also contribute to the development growth of the country, because the government is not able to accommodate all the students, and some have to go to the private university. Like, to narrate a short story in Guinea, it came to a point where we have a lot of students and there were no public university available. So the private university was receiving the university coming from high school, and they were oriented by the government. So government was paying. They were like, it was like a scholarship. Government was giving scholarship to all the students that were going to the private university, right? You may choose to go to private university, or government may also choose to maybe orient you to the private university. So this has become a very serious issue, and it become also a business. So that actually give opportunity to open more private university, because government actually do not have the number of school to accommodate all the students. So now it has come to a point where government is not able to continue paying the private university the school fee of the scholars, right? And then it became a burden on the government. So recently, government decided to stop paying school fee for all their scholars, right? So anyone who is benefiting from a scholarship they gave them like a year to complete. So from then they stopped receiving new scholarship, like giving new scholarship to students. So this has also have an effect to the private university, because trust me, it's not everybody will have the money to pay the school fee when they go to the private university. But because government was supporting and fully paying those private university, you were having many students going there. But now that the government has stopped, it has not come to the private university to organize themselves to be seductive in a way that they can attract more students to go and enroll, which is not the case. So you can see now some private universities are closing because they are not getting the students who can come and pay. And those who can stand on top, they are continuing running their program. So the question there is, what happened to the degree, or what happened to the student who has been student those
Right.
universities that is now closed, right? You go online, you type your university is nowhere to be found. So you deposit your degree somewhere, those universities nowhere to be found, because it has been closed for lack of a student, right? Which is very critical. And you also see some private universities that are running, but they don't have the real support that they should have to continue running their program. So they are struggling, they are starving. That is not easy. So it's like a total chaos, like total disorder that is going on from private university to public university.
Wow.
And some are lucky. Those who are lucky are the people who actually went straight to the public university, even though some was actually attending class from the windows, because you can't find a place in the classroom, so you have to be attending from the windows. So it's serious when it comes to education in our country. The number is good, but the quality is actually a problem. But government does not have means to accommodate everybody. And because government does not have that means, the private university that are here to support, the regulation is not in the way that it should be a fair balance for both private and public, and from parent to students, right? It's a total mess. I hope we find our way out from these days coming. But trust me, some people have gotten a degree that's not going to be recognized in the next years coming, because the university will not be anywhere to exist. which is sad.
I mean, we're laughing, but it's sad. That's absolutely, what a disaster.
Chaos,
That's
chaos,
terrible.
chaos.
Yeah, absolute chaos. And we're going to get to solutions because I think it's important to lay the ground and get an understanding of what the situation is in our different countries, but it's also important for us to think through solutions, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's talk about quality. We've made reference to it for a little bit. You know, just, Joel, as you were talking about private universities in Guinea, I remember in 2009 or something like that, I saw the Université de Barack Obama on Guinea. And I thought, oh, okay, what a good name. But quality, right? So just the other day, the results came out of the baccalaureate, which is the equivalent of the A levels, I believe, in the British system.
Yeah.
Sure. So as students graduate to get ready to go into university. And of course, our government, rightfully so, gives scholarships to the top universities who excel in these exams. And something tilted when I was watching the ceremony recently, as the top students received scholarships to go to Canada, the United States, France. And I thought to myself, any country that is serious about its own development would want to retain its human talent, would want to retain its human resource.
That's right.
So why is it that we are giving our best students the opportunity to study abroad, which I think is a good thing, actually. But why isn't it that they're happy getting scholarships to UCAD, Université Cheikh Anta Diop de Dakar, or, you know, anywhere in Ghana, university there? Could we talk about quality of education, whether it's at the kindergarten, K through 12 level, or university level in our countries?
Yeah. So Martel, very interesting observation you make there. The thing is, it's a frustrating discussion because our speech, or the leadership in our countries, their speech do not match their actions. And in terms of education, right? In terms of the quality question, I think the focus has been a lot on access. Get people into school. Let's get people educated. Like in Ghana, we have the free senior high school. Let's get them in there. Which is important to get a critical mass of your people. In fact, almost all your people educated up to high school. It's a beautiful dream. It's brilliant, right? But then you have to ask yourself, right? What kind of education are they receiving? And that's the number one question, right? Is it an education that can enable them to give themselves a substantial living, a dignified living, and then can also solve our problems, right? So yes, what has happened is, and you made a reference there, a lot of people want to send their kids to the schools in Canada, etc. And sometimes I don't begrudge people because it's for good reason. In terms of the quality, you see, that because they believe that those educational institutions provide a certain quality to their kids or to their wards, right? It will give them the ability to think critically, ability to learn so many different things, give them exposure. And so they feel like this is what they need in a way to build on what they've got from here, or to respond to the deficits of what they had from Africa. And then we lose a lot of these people, brain drain, which we've never found.
Come back.
Yeah, which we've never really balanced it with brain gain. We are not sure. The drain is more than the gain. Some come back, but if you do the balance sheet, the drain is heavier than the actual gain. So my issue is that, look, education quality, please, I think we need to look at the basics. I think one of the things we need to look at is, and which people don't like to discuss, and it's unfortunate, is teacher quality, right? What is the quality of our teachers, especially at the formative stages of children's development? I'm talking about nursery, kindergarten, primary, junior high. How are the teachers trained, right? Then what is being a teacher a dignified and respected occupation? how are we treating teachers in terms of their pay packages? Because if you look at it critically across West Africa, the biggest problem is that many people are teachers by default, or it's like the last option. If they don't get what they want, then maybe it's nursing, and then the last option is what? Is teaching. So teaching becomes like, the thing that I can do now because I didn't get what I really wanted to do. But something just to survive on. But you see, becoming a teacher is not about survival. It's not about an option. It's about the fact that you actually want to teach others and you have the skills to teach, that you want to enable learning because that is part of your passion, right? But we're not getting those kind of teachers into the system. And then when they get into the teachers training colleges and the degree programs, what is the quality of what they are taught, right? And then we come to the infrastructure, the tools, right? What is the quality of our classroom buildings? What's the quality of the teaching aids? We are in a technology era, right? At this point, there should be one child to one computer. Basics in any serious country, if you want to have a competitive education, right? There should be one child to one computer. Have we achieved that? When you have a situation where people are being taught computer studies, but the teacher is drawing the computer on a whiteboard, sometimes even people are still using chalk, then you know that we have a serious problem in terms of quality. And then they're saying, they press this, then they say mouse, they're not actually using the computer. They've never even opened an email, right? They don't even know what a web page is, what the internet is, So for me, I think this is the issue, the infrastructure, right? Then I think another quality question is curriculum. So, and that's an issue we need to dig deeper into, right? We are in a global world. And one of the things I don't like to push too much is the fact that you internalize so much and then you forget about what's going there. But if you're studying something, you need to understand your own environment first before you start to appreciate other people's environment, right?
Absolutely.
And so looking at our curriculum, it's too outward. We need to build more inward curriculum and content that is relevant to the challenges of our time, right? Some of the stuff that our kids are learning and the way they are learning, is it relevant? Even the language they are forced to learn, is it helpful, right? And so there are a lot of questions there in terms of quality. But if you look at our policies, we have the best educational policies on paper in this continent.
Paper, you said
the
it
problem
right,
always is, and no, they're brilliant. The problem is always the implementation. And I don't know how we're going to cure this implementation challenge, right? And one of the reasons I think we have this implementation challenge is because of generally our interests. Everything is politicized in this continent. Everything, including the water you drink. You understand? And as long as we politicize also education, I mean, we'll not get the quality I think we are looking for.
Yeah, I 100% agree with all the points Charles has mentioned, but I believe all of this trickle down to the fact that we have very bad leaders. Our leaders are governing us to make us fail, because it's so obvious that if you understand the purpose of education, you will end up understanding that every part of our current education is not matching the context, it's not matching the realities. Nothing is working. Most of our leaders are currently doing a simulacrum of effort just for the optics, because they want to be well seen, they want to be re-elected, they want to have good metrics, they want to have good indicators, they are trying to have free education, they are trying to have all these actions which seem to be geared toward improving education, but which do not improve it because, first of all, they don't have good intent. Secondly, do they actually understand the purpose of education? Because education is a long-term investment. Currently, our governments are not geared toward long-term investments. They want quick investment which can bring them popular support, which can bring them attention from the international scene, and then move on. when you see that they are bastardizing the whole future of a whole generation, when you see that even the curriculum, how can we teach such things nowadays for the sake of making them ready for the job system? It doesn't make sense. You are wondering if those people have basic logic, because you don't need to go through any spectacular education to understand that what they are teaching us is mostly not making us fit for the market. And I believe it's because we are living in a world where we do not question existing system, even though this system has been inherited through colonialism. But at which point have we sat down to reflect about the purpose of education and try to tailor this system to fit the realities? And if we really mean to have this system to make the next generation fit for economic empowerment, why don't we adjust it based on the realities and how the world evolves? We have bad leaders. They don't mean good education. They mean good education only for their children, and that's the bottom point. There is no other technicality which explains this. If we have leaders who really mean to fix the system, it will be fixed. That's my point. That's my opinion.
Can I say
And
something
their
just
children
quickly?
are usually studying abroad anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, can I say something quickly?
It's like one quick one.
to
It's
add
like
to
working
Shamri?
for the electricity company and having a generator. Why are you going to work to make the electricity for everyone while you yourself, you have a generator? It doesn't make sense. Yes, John, sorry.
Yeah. Just no, Shamri, I like what you're saying, because you see, there's a certain litmus test that shows that our leadership do not even trust their own education system that they oversee. How many of their children go through these systems? You know, by all means possible, almost 80 to 90% of these kids go to international schools, or they go to school abroad, and they don't go to the public schools. You see, a country that is serious, right? The public officials will not dare send their children to private schools, because they'll be questioned by the citizens. The citizens say, wait a minute, why don't you want to send your kids to those schools? That means you know the schools are not good enough. Send them there so that you can fix them, right? And so this is the kind of situation we have, the lack of accountability also when it comes to some of these things. But also we have colonial hang-ups or hiccups. You know, we both hang up and hiccup. You know, one thing about us is that we were taught our colonial system was structured in a way for us to go memorize things and go and write an exam. And we are still in that system, largely, you know, very absent. Critical thinking is very absent, right? Throughout leadership, soft skills, integration, all the way from nursery, very absent. Some of us had soft skills by the time we finished university. We had not even had what soft skills is. It was only hard. You understand? You understand? It's sad. You understand? So all these things are absent. So it's all about memorization, but not thinking. Right? It's all about copying, but not original ideas, authentic ideas. And that is how our system was built. And we haven't questioned it. And I like what Shamrit is saying. And we are still perpetuating this system and getting excited about people who get 6 A's. It's not about 6 A's. It's about the person. Can the person think and apply and live in a world? Is the person entrepreneurial, not an entrepreneur necessarily, but entrepreneurial in terms of creating value wherever the person goes? You understand? And so for me, those are the questions, critical things we need to do in terms of looking at our education system, asking us what works for us. What do we need to do to get us from this level to that next level where we are competitive and our children are confident to compete at the global level, right? And chest out and find solutions for our own problems. I think that is the thing we need to really dig deep into.
I agree. Joel, I think you're on mute.
Yeah. This is so interesting, right? When it comes to education, Africa, actually, we have serious issue. And you know what Shamri was talking about, I was just laughing because it's crazy what is happening in this part of the world. When you see like I call it like family association leadership, and that's exactly what is happening. because people are don't be surprised when they don't send their children into our public school. Don't be surprised, because they know that when they send them there, there's no way they will compete in the international market, right? Job market. It says no way. So for them to ensure their succession, so they need to ensure the good education of those people by sending them abroad. So it is a very well organized crime that is going on in our country. For it to they are planning in the way that, let me put it this way, they are planning in the way that they continue ruling like a family association, because they will finish, their children will come back, they will be more competitive than some of us who have studied in the country in the country here, and the opportunity will also be given to them, because it will be based on knowledge and like qualification. So if you know that you can compete from somebody who is coming, you may say you will not call nepotism, because there is nothing like nepotism. The guy is qualified, he has the knowledge, he went to the good schools, which you did not do. And who is coming to replace his father? Of course, because he's doing that because he had the competency. So this is the system that has been planned to allow like those social class to continue ruling, and some of the social class that do not have the means to also continue be struggling, suffering eternally, which is bad. So I think it's high time that we as a citizen, we take some self-consciousness and come back to question what is going on, and maybe run some movement that will change that. If not, we'll continue into this. And trust me, no one will want to leave his comfort zone or change his position from good to bad position. No, everybody wants to keep his position, especially when the position is good and giving you more advantages. And that's what is happening in our country, which is so sad. So you can see it, yeah, like Charles was saying, how many of them are having their children going to our school is about 98% or even 100% of them having their children abroad. Or if some are in our country, they go to the private university or private school, which is very bad. So, and this quality is not going to change if we do not start questioning that. If we do not start saying enough is enough, this has to stop, right? If you don't want your children to go to the same school like our children, so when they come back, they don't also have the same opportunity for the people who have been able to struggle here and get all this. We should make sure the good education or good university and quality one are offered to our generation in Africa, from Africa, by Africans. It's possible. This is not something that is impossible. We can do it here. Some countries are demonstrating. When you go to you go to Ghana, you have some schools that have at least the international standard. It's not all of the schools, but some of the schools have it. You go to Senegal, some have it. This time around, Rwanda is giving an example. I heard that some people are even leaving private school to public school because of the quality that the public school is offering, which means it's possible.
Excellent.
It's possible. We can do it in Africa, and we have the means to do that. But we just need like some good political will with people who are not selfish, with people who do not want to have that kind of a family lifetime running, so that they balance the thing. So we get all the quality that we want here in Africa, and everybody to have the same opportunity and benefit from the wealth that we are having in our continent. And that can be done by all of us, but not by those people, because it's good for them. They are getting advantages from them, and there's no way they will accept willingly to change it if we don't say yes, no, now enough is enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that's been said so far by everybody. I also think that beyond the schools, don't you all think that when it comes to TV programs, for example, or radio programs, we could be proposing to especially the younger students who are in their formative years, programs that are educational in nature? Why is it that when I turn on a TV in Senegal, all of the channels, if it's not music, some sort of music artist singing, it's some sort of person dancing, it's someone else who's like doing a theater or comedy.
It's entertainment throughout.
It's all entertainment. There's nothing educational about it. Beyond our schools, we could also be having programs, as well as encouraging parents as well. learning doesn't stop when you cross that door of school. When you're at home also, even if it's not sitting with your child to teach them mathematics, but it's when you send them to go buy you something and they come back, you can explain to them that, how much did I give you? 1,000 francs. How much came back? How much did this cost? What's the difference? That's some basic math right there that they could be, encouraging parents also to be very involved in educating their children. It doesn't have to be this very industrial 18th century style of education. It goes beyond that.
Yeah. But Martel,
Martel,
when it comes to that, you cannot give what you don't have. You understand? You cannot give what you don't have. And unfortunately, many parents are also products of the 18th century style. And so that's what they know. Unfortunately, but that's a very good point.
Yeah, you know why I was laughing, Mata, when you were saying this? Let me just give this right. I mocked them when it happened. During COVID in Guinea, the schools were closed down, and the government wanted to innovate, right? To bring some kind of innovation in the education sector. So they were going to give educational program for exams classes on TV, right? Online, straight online. So, and they started. So you could imagine that we have light issue by the time that the people have to be running, going through the TV show program. You see, there's a light on.
Oh, boy.
So imagine somebody who also is in the village who does not even have TV to go through this program. It didn't work. I was mocking because I knew that this was just crazy. It's not going to work because you are in a remote area where there's not even electricity. You don't even have one TV in the village, and you have to run an exam. And they say that the course is now run on TV, so you have to. You see, it didn't work. But of course, she's right what she's saying when it comes to education that we actually give to our children. This is even beyond the children beyond students, right? It's even a kind of education that we even give to our children, right? When it comes to program, which kind of program do we run on our TV, our radio, all those things? Because those exactly what influence children.
Right.
That's also what influence students. So we continue running program that does not give them any kind of value, any kind of
value
education.
added.
Yeah, that's the we use. So you see, people are more. Look, when I came here at the first time, I was shocked. I actually had to make a quick run to visit some 2 or 3 places where young people were gathering. But you couldn't imagine how people were like giving themselves to smoking shisha. You know shisha, right?
Shisha, yeah.
Yes, shisha.
It was crazy. Like you see people like young girls, young men, all the time because that's what they are showing them on TV. So they want to taste how it looks like. There's nothing like a good education that is given to the people on our TV. Like our TV is dancing, showing how to dance. That's the reason why Lepos and Sego said in Africa when we were called to the nation, like nation of countries or countries coming together for a nation conference, we came with our broom because we came to dance. This is crazy, and that's what we're showing on our. This is what we're showing on our TV, singing, dancing. It's not bad. There's entertainment. Of course, we need to entertain ourselves. It's important for human, natural, emotional development. But we shouldn't stop there. There are good programs that we have to run, which will educate our children at home, even if they are not in school. During during the COVID, when they were knocked down, that was a good time for people for TV station, radio station to start running because everybody was at home. And what was used the most was TV, internet, and radio. But which program was developed to maximize the use of that time to educate our people? Nothing. But it was music, it was video. It was the time that even Netflix had more subscribers and more followers or more. You see, YouTube more view, but go there and try to see how many program on YouTube related to education, related to teaching, related to maybe personal development was watched. No, you will see how many video, movie, and cartoons, all those things that has nothing to do with education apart from entertainment. I think even our private TV have to come back and to revolutionize our educational system. This will show the example. We know that government TV is totally political, and which is also the channel that government use to communicate, fine. But the private TV need to change the narrative to show to the population what we really need. And I think we are interested in that, right? Somebody said in Accra one day that it's not everything that interests the people that's in the interest of the people, right? So of course we are interested in whatever we see on TV around us, but is it all those things that interest is our interest? No. So we need to question all those stuff. Yeah.
I think you are even going too far. All this discussion, we put it on social media and very few people will watch it. But if it was a trend on TikTok, if it was a new viral dance, everybody will be following it. So it's a mindset issue. It's so sad to see how much we have our mindset closed and we are not being deliberate with our move. And our society is the reflection of families, and it's our individual responsibility to make sure that within family we put system in place to educate each other, educate our children, educate our brother in a better manner, and stop waiting necessarily also from government.
Yeah, I completely agree. Before we go into the final phase of our discussion, which is like bringing everything together and starting to talk concretely about solutions, I want to pose a controversial topic, which is around language. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about when it comes to education. I mean, just think about this: an African child, aka me, before going to school. So Senegalese, okay, so I speak Wolof, right? But I'm from a Fula family, so I speak Fulani as well. Then I go to school, and all of a sudden, only French is spoken. So at the same time as I am learning about new concepts, math, writing, coloring, whatever, I'm also learning about these concepts, which is already hard, into a brand new language. So I'm also learning that language at the same time. So I wonder if there is something to be said about the inherited nature of the languages that we study in. And I don't think it's impossible because we've seen the Asian tigers, right? So Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, Singapore, etc., changing not only their curriculum, but also the languages in which they teach their children. What do you guys think about having, I don't even know what it would look like, maybe a common African language, Swahili, or our languages, and teaching in those and giving our kids as much of an advantage as possible when they start school?
I agree with you, Mattel. And I think we are not doing it because of a lot of factors, but I can point out 3 or 2. The first one is, first of all, what I already said, the mindset. My personal example, when I was growing up, my parents were not speaking my local language to me. They wanted for me to perform at school, so it was French, French, French. It was only when I reached high school that they started realizing that this doesn't make sense. We are now going to see our family, our kid cannot even interact with them. He's only speaking French, and it's a shame for them. So the Swiss now started speaking phone to me. Even though my phone is not perfect, at least I had the chance to catch up before leaving the house. So it's the mindset. People think that speaking foreign language, speaking French or English is a way of being seen as modernized or having achieved something, which is really bad. And another form in which this displays when we write our CV, we say language, French and English, and then we say local or dialect.
Or dialect.
Exactly, and then we put our
It's not a dialect, it's a language.
Exactly.
Pet peeve. I agree.
I'm waiting for people to put language for a fuller and then put foreign language, French and English. This will make way more sense. So it's all about mindset. It's all about also work. You talked about the curriculum. We can't even adjust our curriculum to integrate new trends. And you want us to change the whole language into fuller or Fon. Who will do that in Africa? They don't have that time. They are too lazy to do that, and they won't have even the support needed to make this transition. And this is affecting us currently. But I definitely agree with you. Language is something we should look at in making sure that our education work for us.
I mean, people will say that languages are not written. Not all of them, that's right, but some are actually written, have alphabets, have grammar and vocab and all of these other laws. So why not adapt maybe one, or like Swahili, why not, for the whole continent or the countries that want to, and then develop a whole curriculum that's actually grassroots led, and not just inherited from, you know, these industrial revolution type of education system where we were preparing students to like sit even in these rows so they could enter that type of job market, or just to be public administrants of like our countries. You know, why not a different system that comes with a different language?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think these are
course.
solid. I think they are solid points. Everyone has made. That language issue is a very tough one for me personally, because yes, I do speak my local language, but honestly, I could speak it much better than I speak it now. It's a bit. I feel sometimes a bit disturbed internally, you know, that I don't speak it as well as I speak it too. And I don't want to blame anybody. I think sometimes, yes, maybe my parents could have spoken it more instead of speaking English, but I also feel it's a personal responsibility at the time when you grow to also make that effort. The question is, how am I doing in terms of with my own kids? Now, you know, that is another whole challenge now, because unfortunately, you know, these kids go to school and the teachers there's an orientation that, you speak English, you know, try and speak English as much as possible. And so the way you can really inculcate a local language or your own language with your kids is at home, where you have to make a decision that, look, I'm going to speak a specific language, local language, to that kid, and avoid speaking English or avoid speaking French. And that's about self-discipline. It's not easy sometimes, because you can easily switch. But I feel like that is the best way to approach it, because we find ourselves in a very it's a complex situation. Yes, promote local languages, but then we are in this globalized kind of space where we want to be competitive, and the people that we are engaging with speak these so-called international languages. I don't know what made them international. You know, they themselves pushed it and made it international, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. But here this unfortunately, because of colonialism and attendant effects of it, we are then now forced to say we are Anglophones and Francophones and Lusophones. I don't even know what that means, right? But unfortunately, we are wearing these tags, and then it's reflected in the language and reflected in the way we think. So we think British, we think French, and we
Absolutely.
think Portuguese instead of thinking Fanti, Fula, Madingo. You know, we're not thinking, or Malinke. We're not thinking that way. You understand? But we are thinking in the way we've been educated. So it's a tough one. And honestly, do I know a solution? How do we get around this? I think we need to look at countries in East Africa like Swahili. You know, how have they done it? How have they been able to get Swahili to be a major language that is used and taught, etc. There are some languages in other countries too, Amharic in Ethiopia. How are they doing it? I'm always amazed at how Ethiopians push their own way of thinking and through their own language, which is reflected in the way they also conduct themselves. And for Pete's sake, Ethiopians speak good English. I know Ethiopians who speak really, really good English. So this idea that if you learn another language it will make your so-called English and French suffer is not true. Actually, if you know your local language well, you actually be very much better in English and French. I believe so.
Knowing various languages,
that you
it trains your brain in a way that you're able to understand concepts differently because you understand them in various languages.
Exactly. And kids can learn many, 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 many languages.
Exactly.
So there's no limit. I think it boils down to a plan, political will, executing that plan. Okay, it'll just take a generation to change things, right?
Yeah.
But the question is, are we willing to do that? And because there's always going to be gains, but there's also those who lose. And the question is, those who lose, are they willing to let go of a system that they've hijacked, that they are
Will they
benefiting
lose?
from? You know.
Will they lose?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, but you know, Africa, we have our context, and frankly speaking, this is it's something that we can do, but it's gonna be a little bit tough and difficult for us. You know,
And maybe
because
it's
in
not
Africa,
necessary.
well, it is necessary, right? It's necessary, but is this our real problem in Africa? That's one of the things. And how can we do it? You know, don't forget about the so many languages that we have in Africa, and those languages in Africa represent different ethnic groups, right? And also, do not forget our our so-called like division when it comes to ethnicity in Africa. Ethnic group have they are linked to languages, right? And because of that, it's very difficult to choose one language for other ethnic group to accept to abandon their language for the other language to become the national language to be used. It's something that is gonna be very difficult for us. But of course, we can achieve it if we are able to use like one currency for ECOWAS, and which is working. Even though some countries like Guinea and Liberia and Co are using their own currency, but we can also maybe be able to choose one language that is easily to be learned and has more vocabulary that we can easily translate from another language to another. Okay, and that has writing characteristic, right? Because that also is one of the things that is very important when you have to select a language. Our language, are they written or not? We speak them, but are we able to write? In Guinea, this is something we experienced in Guinea. Trust me. After you know how we got our independence, right? Is a whole story in Guinea. After our independence, France took everything, even the language. They took it back, right? So yeah, so we have to be educating our people using our own language. So that's the reason why when you come to Guinea, majority of the language you take Fula, you take Malenko, you take Bele, they all have their own writing. They have it. They have their slabs. They have their alphabet. They have it, and you can even write. People have books. We have Bible in Bele. We have Bible in Manenko. You read it, and even our old mama in the village there, they read those things because that's what they were learning in school. They know how to speak it. They know how to read it. By then, they were teaching them in their own languages, but it was not well organized, right? It was very diversified because when you go to Upper Guinea, you were learning in Malenko. You go to South Guinea, you were learning in your local language. You go to, so it was not well organized. So the country would have gone with one language to impose it to all the other languages. But of course, because of the ethnicity and the ethnic division that we have in our, yeah, diversity that we have in our country, I think we can still think about that. But to me, for now, I think we have priorities, and the language may not necessarily be our priority for now. That we should maybe focus on, because we're going to school education. Rwanda have changed from French to English. Now they are pushing their local language that has become second language, right? The English is now first, and the second is it Swahili or what?
Kinyarwanda.
Is now. I learned an article recently that after English, that language is now the second language. And French come third, right? So they are trying to promote, but it's something that has been imposed to all the country, easily to be learned. They have the slab, they have the alphabet characters, which we can also do in our different country and make it work. When you take Senegal, how many people speak Wolof? Almost the majority. When you take Ghana, how many people speak Chui? Almost the majority. So they can leverage on that, capitalize it, and make it something that people can easily learn. And from there, we can move on. But we have common language that is facilitating our interaction within our country and outside the country. We can use it to communicate well and maybe also try to learn from that and develop our local language in a way that it helps us to communicate. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you touched on something really good in that it can happen. I mean, Switzerland, for example, has done that, right? I mean, the Swiss are a federation of different people, so part French, part German, Italian, and then Romansh. And actually, they have 4 official languages in the country, and those who are Francophone Swiss or Swiss Romand speak French, and the Germanophones speak German, and the Italians and the Romansh, and they learn each other's languages. They don't have to know it so well, but at least they have similar concepts. And they run, I mean, Switzerland is one of the richest countries. But I like what you said about prioritizing. There's so many needs that we have when it comes to education that in terms of priorities, maybe the language issue is something we can tackle at a later stage. So, I mean, I think we've talked a lot about many things. Relevance is the final point that I had, and we've already touched on it. So maybe just to start also thinking about solutions as we think about relevance. So what do you think we can propose as solutions when it comes to our education system, especially as it relates to its relevance? We've all posed the point that it's no longer the curriculum and the ways in which we're learning are not as relevant to the job market in which we're seeking to enter, whether it's in our own countries or even at the international level. So what do you think we can do, and what role do you think technology, right? We'd like to talk about digital and digitalizing and technology. What role could technology play in any sort of solution that we would come up with?
So if I may go,
Yeah, sure.
it's very important, first of all, that as country, we have a plan. Where do we want to see ourselves in the future? Once we are able to answer this question, we can now think about the type of job we need to have to drive this development agenda. Once now we are able to identify the type of job we need, then we can shape our education system to prepare our kids to have this job and then drive the development of the country. The problem is that how we are currently designed is almost impossible to have a long-term development plan, because with the type of democracy we are having, government keeps shuffling each 5 or 4 years in the best case scenario, and is a politics of the winner takes all. When they come, nobody wants to continue the plan which has been put in place by the previous government. So we need to find a solution, find a way to define a long-term plan which will be followed by successive governments or leaders through whichever means that we'll put in place, and which will be adjusting depending on the context. Based on that now, we will shape the education system to fit this, because having thousands and thousands of students learning literature, learning French, learning German, how will it help Benin become a developed country? I'm wondering. Help or studying sociology is good, but currently, do we need sociology to become a developed country? We need to ask ourselves this question. And in terms of relevance, there's this practice within Africa where point of entry to certain type of education is made so hard, I don't know for which reason. For example, when I graduated from high school, my first choice was to become a medical doctor. I applied for it, I got rejected, even though I had very good grades. It was only open for son of minister, people who has influential power. So even the access, how do we make it accessible? Is it based on fair? Is it a unfair based? Is it based on merit? Is it based on interest? All these mechanisms need to be engineered to support the development of the country. And I believe it all comes down to leadership. First of all, having good intents for the country, and second of all, having the technical competency to engineer such process, and then having the goodwill of the country and the nation and the future leaders to continue this plan on a longer period. If we don't have these three, goodwill, technical competency to engineer it, and ability to make it go through a certain number of years, which definitely will exceed a normal term of government, will never be able to change it.
Facts. Yeah. No, I mean, Chairman is, Joel, you can go on.
Yeah, Shamri, you make a very good point there, and I think that's what we need. So yeah, the question is we need to know what is our we have to find out what is our need, right? In Africa, what do we need to make this part of the world developed continent or developed country? That's exactly what we need now. So if we identify our need, we may try to propose solution to those needs. What do we need right now? Is it politicians that we need? And the answer is no. Is it like high literature professors that we need? The answer is no. Is it engineers that we need? The answer is yes. So what are we looking for, and how many engineer schools do we have? How many professional schools do we have? Not many. But how many university graduates who are studying law, who are studying maybe literature, who are studying sociology do we have? How many schools of those kind we have in our country? Journalism and co. We have a lot. But how
Management.
is
I don't even know what
exactly
that means.
management, all those things?
Gestion. Gestion. Like, qu'est-ce que vous
Yes,
gérez? Gestion.
exactly. So
Anyway,
it's
nothing
how
against those things, but just,
no,
you
nothing
know.
is against it, but we have to have the balance. When we are developing that, we also need to develop, like, to invest in people who have to develop our country. Right now, look, go to your oil company that you have in your country and check there. Go to your mining company that you have in your country. Check there how many people are employed there. They are national staff. Very few people, because they don't have the quality. Go to those who are building the bridge in the country. Which company are they called to come and build those bridge, right? Those barrage, electricity, whatever. We have to call people from abroad. We borrow money from them to build our infrastructure, and we also call them to come and build the infrastructure. We give them back the money, and we have to pay that money back. It's crazy. It doesn't make sense. So what we need to do is to have those people, like, to strengthen our educational system in a way that it responds to our need. Right now, we need engineers who can build schools, who can build like bridge, who can also work in our mining company, our oil company. So when we need engineer, we don't go and hire a company from Italy, from France, from wherever, but we employ our own people. Small road from my house to the junction. They want to build that. They have to do international call for people to apply from abroad. It doesn't make sense. Meaning what? We don't have the quality, like we don't have the capacity in-house to be able to do those things. So we need to start maybe directing our educational system toward that direction, so that we have the people that can build this country. So we keep the money in here. We borrow it. If we borrow it, at least it's in. So we use to diversify it to make it more and send and pay back. Exactly. That's what we need from now. So, and that can only be done by building more professional schools, and changing our look. The program that we received after colonialism is still what we have now, and that does not respond to nowadays needs. We are in the 21st century. It does not respond to now. So we need something that is responding to the need that we have now. And that can be done if our leaders try to start thinking of what we actually need to change this country. I heard that in Rwanda, I sometimes take example. I know they are not the best, but at least they are doing some good stuff that we need to take, right? If something is good, you need to copy from your colleagues. I hear that from Rwanda. Rwanda has now instaured the teaching of business, okay, classes and business management, running a business, establishing a business, all those things from secondary school, some from even primary school, which sometimes we don't even see in some of our university. Is now that some universities are talking about business stuff. Before it was not that. So it's time now we start having those curriculum in our schools, those programs in our school, that we really need to develop this country, so we don't keep hiring people from abroad to come to build stuff here and take the money back. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice one. I love that, Joel. I think this question, it's a very interesting question, but I think that we need to look at the basic question, and I think Chamrit and Joel answered it very well. Chamrit talked about a long-term plan, educational plan, and then Joel talked about what are our needs? Because that plan will be based on a thorough needs assessment of what kind of education do we need as Africans so that we can fulfill our potential, not necessarily measure it against Singapore, Canada, or Switzerland, right? I think this race, we are running it against ourselves. Yes, we could learn some things from them, but what do we need as Africans, right, in terms of education to get us from this point where we are so that we can fulfill our potential, so we have an Africa that is different, right, that is effective, that is efficient, and that people have a dignified existence and are doing great things for in their countries and beyond, right? So what do we need? And I think one of the things we need to really critically think about is the vehicles to enabling this learning. The plan is one. That's a major vehicle. What is the plan? But usually we have beautiful plans and policies, right? Next one is political will. And that is something that is tough. It's a tough nut to crack because that needs a lot of civic engagement and citizen consciousness to put education as a major issue in political spaces, right?
But Charles, just to cut you off a little bit, sorry.
Yes.
It's a chicken and an egg thing. Which one comes first? If you want citizens who are conscious and engaged, they have to be educated first, or do you have to have that consciousness first to push for that education?
I think I like that question, but I think there's what the failure now is that those of us who have been educated and are privileged, because we are in this continent, because there are a lot of poor people, we are not playing our roles effectively in terms of becoming that transformation or enabling that transformation. We are also, comfortable in our little corners and sometimes just complaining, but not being part of, the processes to make these change happen, right? And so this is somebody has to lead, and somebody has to lead transformation, right? And then inculcate that transformational process to a wider audience, right? And so, yes, plan, yes, put education on the front burner, but most importantly, what are those other elements? We've talked about some of them again. The educational services, right? How are they structured? So all of our countries have education services that run education in our countries, right? How are they resourced, right? Who are the persons running these things, and what plan are they following? Then, of course, there's the schools, right? And for a school to run, it cannot. You see, we have moved from the teacher says this to a more of learner-centered, right? Because everything is about learning in this technological era. In order for you to grow, you need to be more learner-centered. So we move from the teacher is saying this to, okay, learner, what do you think about this? And providing your own perspective as a learner to express that. So how do we make our schools more enabling, right? That's the number one question. The persons who help us to do this are teachers. Look, let me be honest with you, right? COVID-19 has shown me that teachers are, if not after doctors, because health is one major thing, are the most important people in our societies. Right? Let's put the pastors aside, please, and the others. I'm sorry to say this. Yeah. After doctors, nurses, the health professionals, I think teachers are next. Right? Look, I have kids, okay? It is no joke teaching.
Where do you put the military just?
Look, I still maintain teachers. Everybody else has been taught.
He's from Guinea, he had to.
Everybody else has been taught, including the doctors themselves. So, I mean, in fact, they could be possibly number one. You understand? But what kind of environment do our teachers find themselves in? How are they incentivized to give us their best? Right? We have a serious problem with teaching quality across board. Right? And the vehicle that's going to get us, the driver who's giving direction for us to get there, the person who's driving the bus, right, does not know how to drive, but is teaching you how to drive. You understand? You see the problem we've got. So we need to look at teaching quality, the package for teachers, putting some respect on that profession. In Africa, we don't respect teachers. I'm sorry. I mean, I need to be blunt. We do not. Sure. But these people have changed and transformed our lives. Look, if it wasn't for teachers, I won't be sitting here today having this conversation. some teachers that I think about in my primary school, who, you know, when people don't believe in you, they just whisper something or they do something, you know, and you become who you are. Look, I think for me, that's extremely important. Teaching quality, teaching methodology. Then of course, when you know your needs, you know the content. Me, I don't like to get bogged down in too much content because I see things like technology, critical thinking, and all those soft skills as your ability to use that to apply the content to solve a problem and not the content itself. I don't know if you're understanding me. Content is more
memorizing to no end.
Yes. So those are the tools that, of course, you should use. You are making soup. You can't use your one finger to stir. You need a spatula. You understand? So yes, tech is important. Yes, critical thinking or literacy. Yes, but the question is, what is it that we need to learn? What are the things that we need to be consuming that will enable us to use these technological tools, critical thinking tools, leadership tools to solve our problems? Because you see, I think people don't understand something. When our problems minimize, right, our fortunes maximize. Do you understand?
Amen.
Yeah, we all become wealthier, and not monetarily only wealthy, but wealthier in terms of our relationships with people, wealthier in terms of the assets we have, wealthier I dare say even spiritually, right?
Healthier also.
Emotionally, we become wealthier, right? So our job is the education system is to minimize problems so that our fortunes can what? Maximize. Right? Together, right? We don't need an education system that is based on competition. It's irrelevant. We need an education system that talks about collaboration, collaborative advantage, not competitive. Why should I compete with Chamrid and Joel? You go to school, they go and put your name and your grades. Everybody knows who was first and who was 20th. So what?
No, thank you for that, Judge.
That's irrelevant. We need an education system that will make us work together and see ourselves as part of a whole, solving a problem that we face, and that when we do work together, all our fortunes will maximize. You understand? So we need to go beyond those things and respect everybody's gift, skill, and profession. In this continent, we think that some professions are more important than others. That is also as a result of our education system. Everybody has their skill and interests. So let's put dignity on all these things. And for me, for all this to happen, look, I mean, and I keep on saying, people think, Charles, you talk about this too much. I said, look, if we don't integrate leadership skills, leadership thinking and practice from nursery, right, into curricula, and get our people to think as leaders, right? Think as leaders. You cannot do leadership if you don't think as one. You cannot give what you don't have. We're not going to see this change coming, right? We're not going to see this change. Look, I have a colleague, a very great colleague, Leap Africa, Michael Ohene Efa. I think Chamrid should know him. Joel might know him. Associate of where I work. And he has this beautiful leadership program. What has happened is he's tried to integrate these leadership programs into primary schools, public schools, secondary school, and he's had challenges of schools accepting this beautiful leadership program that is cultivating the skills, knowledge, and attitudinal shift of young people, because they don't seem to see, but what's the value of all this? And this is the basic problem, I feel, of our education system.
Is it an African, Church?
Yes, a Ghanaian.
Of course, you shouldn't be surprised if that's what's coming from. If that's not, no, it's, you know, that's exactly what Chamrid was saying, right? It's a mentality. If that was coming from abroad right now, if this was UK coming to propose this, trust me, by now those programs would have been run to all your schools in Ghana. Exactly. But because it's coming from it's the mindset.
You see, our education is not curing. It's not curing our mind. It's not emancipating our mind. So we are not really getting educated. I keep on saying this because it's not emancipating our mind. We are being schooled You know,
So,
sorry to throw that in. We're just being schooled and
no, it's
getting
true.
we are certified, but we're not educated. It's
Yes,
different.
you mentioned it's not what the teachers say, it's rather what it should be learner-centered. But take democracy, for example. Isn't it what people have said that we are doing? We all agreed now that we need long-term plan, but we'll be focused on doing 5 years shifts between random people who do not have the interest, do not have the competencies to drive our countries. But we cannot decide for ourselves. And when a country decides for itself, we put all our effort to cripple down these countries, such as Rwanda. Rwanda, they have decided for themselves. Who are we to tell them that this is not democracy, this is not good, but this is what works for them? We are not doing stuff just for the sake of doing. We are doing what works for us. We are trying to understand. That's why I'm always saying that when someone throws at you a rule, understand the principle which underlies this rule so that you use the principle to apply to your realities. But this atmosphere or copy and paste, where someone needs to tell you what is good, it does not help you. And sorry to digress, see the cases of
Shamrid Malien will like you.
use of data. When it was US government and UK government using data of citizens for Cambridge Analytica, they tried to jail Snowden. But when it's TikTok and China use data of the US, they want to ban TikTok. Who is who to tell what is good? It does not make sense. We should stop receiving orders, think for ourselves, and stand strong on our feet, and then decide of our future. If not, we'll be there talking. That's why I'm taking action. How to integrate the system and hijack it from inside. Because advocacy, preaching, but it's good to build education, to build the next citizens, to build the future. But if we don't go there and then change it from the top, it will be very difficult because everything is maintaining us where we are. Sorry for the digression.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I think it's relevant. And that's actually my last question. So if we were to concretely do this, we said we need a plan and we need leaders. And we obviously don't have good public administration schools because our public administrators are not very strong. But who would be leading this? Who would be coming up with these national educational plans and helping us, implement these plans? What are the types of profiles that you foresee? What types of people are these? Are they people in the diaspora that have to come back? Are they are these magical beings?
Martel, can I say something quickly?
Great.
In Africa, we need to respect people that have experimented and succeeded. You see, I don't believe in theoretical explosions. I believe in practical manifestations. I don't want to sound all religious, but that's the point. Look,
Pastor Van Dyke.
There's a guy who started Africa Leadership Academy, Swanika, right? Based on a certain model, right, of entrepreneurial thinking and leadership, building leadership. He started African Leadership. Now he has African Leadership. It's called Fred Swanika, African Leadership University. They are producing some of the best people from Africa in Africa, with contextual driven curricula, right? And for example, he's being supported in Rwanda by Kagame to expand his university. He's also in Mauritius. You understand? Then it's Ghana here. The guy who started Ashesi. Right?
Okay.
Patrick Ewa, Dr. Patrick Ewa left a cozy, and let me emphasize this, a cozy job at Microsoft. He didn't need to come. And said, look, I want to do something about education, and came to start a whole university, right? And look at what he's doing with Ashesi and what he's been able to produce in terms of the products, the thinking, the methodologies at Ashesi, the kind of learning that is happening at Ashesi. And he's not an educationist. So to answer your question, right? Who should be on these committees? The people that have done it. You understand? The people that have been there and have led transformation processes, not theoretical people who have done PhD in education policy. Look, I'm not trying to bring people down. It's relevant, but what have you done with that PhD? Right? I always believe in people who have done something, who have transformed a system, not people who have theoretically written a certain formula and, you know, done a hypothesis. No, but what has been the outcome of that? What have you done? So there you are. Patrick Iwa is there. Swanika is there. There's a guy from Sheikh Anta Diop. I forgot his name. There's a couple of people. You know, there's some guys in South Africa that I know are working University of Witwatersrand, great programs, great, you know. So there are people, there are different types. There are some people who are focused on indigenous knowledge. You know, yes, documenting indigenous knowledge in Africa. Let's get those people. You understand? We need some really smart historians, because if we don't know where we're coming from, you know, we know how to, where we're going. When we say historians, we're not talking about Africa experts. We're talking about Africans who know our history. It's different, too. You understand? Yeah. We're not talking about Africa experts. Africans who know our history and have proven by their ability to articulate history to us in a way that we understand. Right.
Yeah.
So we know the people, but the problem in Africa is that even though we know the people that should be part of these things, right, we don't want to get these people involved because of our narrow parochial political interests, right? Because frankly, for me, AU, this is where AU comes in. AU should have had a clear education kind of guideline or framework for Africa that we all then take from. You know, we all take from as countries and build on that. But because we know that as Africa, this is where we are going with education. Right. ECOWAS could have also taken something from there. Right. So for me, I feel like we know what to do, okay, but we are just unwilling to take those steps. That they don't seem to be priority. Right. And one of the things that I've loved about COVID is that, and it's unfortunate that, you know, it did not last longer. But, you know, it seems to be COVID is that it forced people to think about, okay, what do we have? You know, people could not go back to their fancy schools. People could not, if they have health problems, they could not fly out. So it forced people to think about, oh, wait a minute, then we need to fix our own systems. We need to fix our own schools, right? Unfortunately, it hasn't been very, should I say, desperate yet.
We need more universal.
Yeah, because I'm not sure whether this COVID has still taught us that lesson to make those shifts toward trying to transform aspects of our education, right? But we must commend the people that are trying, at least experimenting. Rwanda, to a large extent in Ghana, you know, President Akufo-Addo and the free SHS. Let's give him props. Props where it's due. I know Chairman is coughing.
Sorry, no.
They have some. No, you see, the thing is that it's a brilliant program. Even the double track, it's actually quite brilliant. But you see, it comes to the implementation. You see, on paper, it's brilliant, but the implementation has been the challenge, right?
Not just even.
But let's encourage these things. For me, let's encourage these things because it's better to experiment and try something to make the changes than just to leave the system the way it was. Right? Because for me, a lot more people getting educated in Ghana for me is healthy. It creates that civic consciousness. It creates that critical mass. But of course, it's more than just what's on paper. It's actually what is on the ground in terms of implementation. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Why is Chairman coughing so much?
I don't know why somebody's coughing.
Yeah, we're in COVID times. Who knows?
No.
Great. So
Joel, you had a comment?
Maybe, just want to make some few comments. I think Charles has said it already. And it's true, we have the people, right? When it comes to human resource, trust me, in Africa, we do have the human resource, right? We have the people, we have the qualification, but the thing is, we don't give room to the people we have. That's the problem. We think, and this is political. So the political will, even if we have the people, let the political will be there so that we give room to the people who can do the job, for them to help us move these things on. Because if you did politics, we're talking about education. You have nothing like knowledge when it comes to education or building or putting in place educational system that make the country move forward. Accept people who have the knowledge to do the work. It's not a competition. Because the problem that our politicians have is when they give somebody room to do the good job and he made it done, it become an opponent, and the person may come and become very much popular in the way that he may think of running for presidency, which is not true. Everybody is not interested in ruling the country. Some people just want to make a change, which will be a value added to the country, and which what the guy from Accessi is doing, right? Who knows right now if he wants to run for presidency? They will clap for him because he has done positive stuff in the country that is visible. But is it in his interest? Does it need it? No. So let's give room to the people who have the knowledge to come and help, because a country cannot be developed by one person, neither by one politician. It's a contribution from all different kind of background, different kind of people who have the different knowledge. This should be accompanied by the political will that is there to support. Because education, no matter the knowledge that you have, if you don't have the financial support that is needed, is nothing. So sometimes the politician also give you room. They say, okay, great, to make themselves popular so citizens do not criticize. Great, go ahead, do it, but they don't give you the means that will help you to do the job. So we need all those things. So I think it's a conscious effort that we need to take from the citizen to the politician to the technocrat, those who have the adequate knowledge to make it move. So if we come together as a country with that understanding that we have one purpose and we need everybody's support and effort to achieve, I think we will achieve it, and we achieve it very quickly. Yeah.
Great. I think on that note, we've covered a lot of ground. Thank you all for your contributions.
Thank you.
And see you all next time.
All right. Bye.
Continent.